Welcome to the Educated Parent Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leah Kliansky, and I am so excited that you're here today, especially because we're going to talk about a topic that will happen to pretty much all of us if any of us has a spouse or a partner at home. So let me lay out a situation and tell me if you can relate to this. You are in the car with your spouse or partner, and you start to disagree about something. Maybe you don't agree where you should park or where you should stop on a road trip. And suddenly, maybe you're snapping at each other. Maybe someone starts yelling. The whole thing escalates. And then you realize, oh my goodness, my kids are here and they saw us have an argument. Oh my gosh, what do I do about that? This is so uncomfortable. So if this happens to you or could happen to you, that is what we're here to talk about today. You're listening to Educated Parent, the parenting podcast where I teach you realistic, expert parenting hacks to solve your everyday parenting problems so that you can reduce your stress, build your confidence as a parent, and raise thriving children. My name is Dr. Leah Kliansky, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, owner of Thriving Child Center and PCIT Experts Child Psychology Practices, and a real-life parent of 2 young children. I am the same as you. I am invested in being the best parent possible and raising thriving children. I also get overwhelmed, I make mistakes, and I forget what works. I do have 3 unique parenting advantages that you may not have. A PhD in child clinical psychology, over 15 years of clinical experience working with families, and a network of other experts that I can text for parenting advice whenever I'm lost. I'm here to bring my expertise and my expert network to you so that we can solve your everyday parenting dilemmas together. I am so glad you're here. I have the most amazing guest. I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Laura Spiller. She brings over 2 decades of expertise in clinical psychology and specializes in helping families navigate conflict and build resilience through challenging times. Her unique perspective is shaped by both professional training and profound personal experience, having supported her late husband through a 5-year cancer journey while raising 2 young children. As a former psychology professor and researcher, she combines academic rigor with practical insights to help parents transform their relationships into secure foundations for family healing. Drawing from her extensive training and emotionally focused, Dr. Spiller guides couples to create safe, nurturing environments for their children, even during times of conflict. Her compassionate approach helps parents turn difficult moments into opportunities for connection and growth, ensuring families emerge stronger than life's challenges. So clearly she's here. Dr. Spiller, I'm so excited to have you on Educated Parent.
Thank you, Leah. I'm really glad to be here. Important topic to talk about too.
Oh, absolutely, because this is so relatable and no one knows what to do when this happens to them.
Yeah, and helping to use these challenging moments, for greater connection, understanding, knowledge of ourselves, of the people we love and care about. We can think about them as opportunities.
Yeah, that's such a good reframe instead of just the terrible guilt and shame of, oh no, I've had conflict in front of my kids. Have I traumatized them, right? That's what we're all afraid of. Have we done something that's caused irreparable harm?
I think we all remember those moments of, being in the kid in the back seat when our parents were fighting and not knowing how to make sense of it.
Yeah, I can remember that too. And I don't think people talked about it very much.
Yeah, I think that is the move on, pretend it doesn't happen, try to hope everybody forgets about it, not want to make it worse by talking about it. That's a real common strategy, especially when we were younger.
So from you saying that, I'm getting the feeling that you might end up telling us that we actually have to talk about this and we can't just avoid it and be more comfortable.
I think one of the best things we can do is help our children make sense of their experiences that are hard and difficult. Even better than protecting them from those difficult experiences is being there to help guide them and help them make sense of those difficult experiences and supporting them.
Can I ask you, Laura, have you ever gotten into an argument in front of your kids? Has this ever happened to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have been that parent in the front seat, snapping, trying to say, there's nothing wrong with my driving. I don't know what your problem is. If you had just asked for directions, then we wouldn't be lost.
It's universal, right?
Yes, exactly. And had my kids say things like, Mommy, Daddy, stop fighting.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable one when they call you out directly like that.
Absolutely.
But none of us are perfect parents, perfect people, or perfect partners.
And our kids aren't perfect either. So if we help them know how to be imperfect people navigating a challenging world, right, that we are preparing them to have better, more fulfilling lives in the future.
So, Laura, can you explain to me, like, why can't we avoid it? What are the harms that we can do if we just have the fight or have multiple fights and just pretend that nothing happened? Just move on, not talk about it. When kids ask about it, we don't answer them. Like, why is that not the best plan in your opinion?
Yeah, I talk to people all the time about what they learned about relationships from what they saw their parents do. And one of the things that people describe consistently as being really difficult and kind of making it hard for them to understand their own inner world and navigate their feelings is that they saw things that they knew were upsetting and scary, and everybody else around them acted like it was no big deal and not happening. I mean, it leads to this difficulty trusting our perceptions, knowing what to do with upset feelings, and just feeling like we almost can't trust the people around us to be living in the same world that we're in. It's very isolating. So I think that's one of the biggest problems with not talking about it or naming it or acknowledging that, yeah, this was a hard thing and it felt bad for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So if we just avoid it and pretend that nothing happened, then we're sort of saying to our kids, there was nothing to be upset about. Like, you were in the car with us, you heard us yelling, and you should just be fine with this. And that's the message.
We're all
they
fine.
get.
I don't know what's wrong with you. There must be something wrong with you that this was upsetting for you and that you felt like there's a problem here, because it's fine.
Do you feel like it's kind of how people talk about gaslighting a little bit? Like, with good intentions, like, we'll just pretend I don't want to worry you with my problem, so we'll just move on. But then It's like there's this accidental secondary problem with it.
Yes. It really leaves people isolated, alone, confused, and having to make sense of it on our own. And then kids, don't have a sophisticated framework for making sense of what's happening. They are more likely to blame themselves or be more upset and confused about what's happening without some help.
So with like no context, like, so if you're the kid in the back seat and your parents get into a fight with no discussion or context, you might think that somehow the fight was your fault. Like, maybe it's because you asked for a snack or you asked them to pull over and use the bathroom, and then they have a fight. And so you think, I caused the fight, even though you actually had nothing to do with it at all.
Mm-hmm. And now I have to be really careful, because I don't know what's going to happen or when this is going to blow up or if everything's okay again.
Right. Do you think too, like, kids imagine that the worst will happen? So if there's an argument and no one talks about it, maybe like their friend's parents got divorced. What if it happens to my parents?
Yeah. And it's really common, for kids just to go through periods where they may be asking about, divorce or, are we going to always live together? And are you going to always love each other? And what does this fight mean? It's a common fear for kids.
You're convincing me we should probably talk about this, even though it's more comfortable sometimes to avoid these tough discussions, especially if we don't know how to have these tough discussions at all.
And it's likely people didn't have these tough discussions with us. So we don't have we often don't have a model for how to do that.
Do you think that healthy relationships can have conflict?
Absolutely. I think conflict is normal. I think conflict is the way that we learn about ourselves and our partner. As I mentioned earlier, I see them as opportunity. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's important to try to have constructive conflict that doesn't escalate too much. But if it does, it's even more important to come back around and address it and help children understand what happened and that what you are doing to try to use that constructively and try to prevent it from happening again.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like how our children watch everything we do and model their behavior after us a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about like if they can see healthy conflict and they can see people talk about it afterwards, maybe that gives them a framework for understanding conflict in their future relationships as well. And also knowing when it's not healthy too. Like, what is the difference between the way my parents fought that was healthy and maybe a situation that is, not good for them to be in?
Yeah. And part of what makes conflict escalate is fear in those moments. And if we don't know what to do with our own upset, or it tells us that something is really wrong with our relationship, then it potentiates the conflict. Oh no, this is terrible. We shouldn't fight about this. Why are you making me so upset? it actually adds to the escalation. So we make it, if we're talking to our kids about them, helping them understand that everybody gets angry and that we can have conflicts without, meaning that our relationship is bad or that the person that we're having a disagreement with is bad, then we help them be able to remain calm when they're having conflict and to avoid more disruption and escalation in their conflict in the future too.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that if we can model for our kids, healthy conflict is okay, especially conflict that's talked about and resolved, then when they grow up someday and they're in a relationship and they see healthy conflict happen, they won't panic and think, oh no, our relationship is over because we're having conflict. And then they won't add fuel to the fire of the fight that they are now having with their own partner.
Exactly.
You're right. It's kind of scary to have conflict with someone you love.
Totally. It's normal that in those moments when we, like we're in the car, we're feeling misunderstood. We're feeling not like, we're getting through, we're not being responded to, that there is this, I use the term alarm, this internal alarm, like, this is not good. I don't like this. Why aren't you listening to me? That is, a really normal thing. But when we add to it the message that there's something bad about our relationship and that this fight is going to put, our relationship in jeopardy, then it's that much more, the alarm is that much louder and the internal, state of upset is that much bigger. And that's when we kind of, lose our ability to stay calm and cool and collected.
Yeah. It's so interesting how much about parenting is trying to stay calm yourself.
Totally.
Do you ever feel lost as a parent of toddlers? Here you are in a stressful situation. Maybe there's screaming or tears and chaos, and you're just feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening. And you think, I just wish there were an expert in my ear telling me what to do. I'm so out of my comfort zone. I just need someone to help me manage this situation. When you are wishing for that expert in your ear, walking you through the steps to make this better, you are wishing for parent-child interaction therapy, or PCIT, because that's exactly what we do in PCIT. We teach you strategies for connecting with your child, for setting limits, and for what to do in these difficult moments, and we coach you during those moments. So when the challenging behavior is happening, we are right there, helping you figure out what to do, and then giving you tools so that you can do this later when we are not there to help. It can be extremely effective. You can schedule a matching call or schedule yourself into a therapist schedule at PCITexperts.com. I really hope you contact us there if you are feeling this level of stress, especially if you have a 2 to 8-year-old at home. So because this is the Educated Parent Podcast and you need to walk out with strategies, we're not just going to tell you go talk to your kids and leave you by yourself to figure it out. So now we're going to give you some actual strategies. So I guess my first question, Laura, is when should this conversation take place? So we should have it. It's scary to have it. How do you set it up so that it's a successful conversation? Do you have it right after? Do you wait? What do you do?
Yeah, I think that it's not crucial to have it right after, but the sooner that you can have the conversation in a place where you have returned to sort of a baseline calmness, where you feel confident that you can come to your kids. The goals of this conversation are twofold. One is to help them understand conflict better. So to help them see that you can have a disagreement and you can have difficult emotions and some heat, but that you can also discuss it and have resolution. So that's your first goal, is to help them kind of see that that's possible. And the second one is to have a place to be able to say, I didn't like it. It felt bad for me. For you to validate that and be like, yeah, I know. I can remember, being a kid and that didn't feel good for me too. And I know it's hard. And, I'm sorry that you felt that way. And to have a place to name and validate their feelings and let them know that what they felt is normal.
So what I'm hearing you tell me is that the first step is committing to having the conversation once you, as the parent, have calmed down enough to have the conversation. You don't want to have it when you are still in fight or flight, escalated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I brought up those 2 points where you want to be able to have it when you can kind of honestly say that, yes, we talked a bit about it, or we're working on talk about it, that you are in a place where you can say that this disagreement is going to be resolved or is resolved, and help them understand that and have enough emotional balance that you can hold their feelings with love and
Right.
compassion and validate. So that's more important than any specific timeline. So it may take you an hour, it may take you 48 hours, it may take a week. I think that's probably a little long to leave the kids without some support around it, but coming back a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later is still better than not coming back to it at all.
Mm-hmm. So if your kids don't look upset, that doesn't mean just assume they're fine. Like, you still come back, have the conversation, make sure you are calm enough to have the conversation.
Exactly.
And have it. So that's instrumental, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, they look fine, maybe we can just avoid this. And I feel like all psychologists say, or don't avoid things. Approaching things is almost always better than avoiding problems.
Yes.
So we are committed. We are not avoiding. That is step number 1. Step number 2 is about helping them see conflict resolution in process. And what does that look like?
Yeah. So we might, take, and of course it's going to sound a little bit different based on your child and their age. But, imagine that you have a little one, maybe 5 or 6 years old. You're going to come and say, you want to acknowledge, wow, I know mom and dad had a fight yesterday and we were angry. And I bet that didn't feel very good. I know that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to let you know that we have kept talking about it. And even though it was really hard for us to disagree, that we have talked about it and we're finding a way to be able to both care about this and to figure out a way to make this go well. And we're really glad that we talked about it, because even though it was hard, we really feel a lot better about it now.
It's funny, Laura, as you're saying that, even though obviously I'm not 5 and my parents did not just have a fight, I feel a little relieved just hearing it. Like, just having the explanation of like, this is what happened. And it's simplified enough where I don't feel like a child would think they were responsible, but it's also clear enough, like there was a problem and you had a reaction to it and it was real and we addressed it as adults and now things are okay.
Yeah. I mean, and kids are going to understand, I wanted to do it one way and your dad wanted to do it another way. And so we really kind of had to talk that through, and it was hard. Yeah. And we both got frustrated, because kids have probably had that experience that they're going to get frustrated that their friend wants to play the game one way and they want to play the game another way. Mm-hmm. So you can be able to kind of say that, yeah, we want it, but we're both feeling a lot better because we understand now what the other person was wanting, and we're figuring out a way to work it out so that we can find a way to agree.
I love that. So simple. If you were talking to a teenager, how would you change it up a little bit for them?
Yeah, with teenagers, I think it is, they can come with a lot of questions and be really curious, and that can be a really powerful learning experience for us to kind of hear their reflections on our behavior. And it's also really important to let them know this is a mom and dad thing and really not your problem to solve. But I would probably, start out in similar way, like, wow, I know that was a really uncomfortable fight that your dad and I had yesterday. And I'll bet that was hard for you to overhear that and to be there when we were disagreeing like that. But I want you to know that it actually was a really good thing that we had this discussion. And I'm sorry it got so heated, but, it was really important to us. And we were really seeing it differently. We were coming from different places. We obviously, we didn't agree on how to do it. And we are trying to, make sure that we have those discussions in a respectful way. We did lose our cool. I know that didn't feel good for you. It didn't feel good for me either. But we are working it out. We are talking about it, and we're figuring out how to make sure that we have those conversations in a better way with maybe more listening next time.
What I'm noticing about how you're framing it is you're not giving them all the details about like the different parts of the conflict that don't apply to them. Like, you're giving them the general scoop. Like, we had a disagreement, we resolved it, this is how it went, but you're not bringing up like the things they don't need to know, right? Those intimate details that are just too much for your kids. They don't need to know, like, well, your father's also done these things, your mother's also done these things, or you're just like right to the point. This is what our conflict was about. We had differences of opinions. This is how we've handled this. And so there's boundaries, even though you're being open about the resolution, you're not giving them more than they can handle in the argument.
Yeah. And I think it really is important with teenagers to draw the line between like, this is an adult thing and the details of this, are ours, but you also want to help them understand the process enough that they can come talk to you about the fight, that they feel like you're open to talk about the process, you're open to talk about how it was for them, for those sorts of things.
Yeah. And so after that you talk about it, then that's that third part where you're listening to how they feel. You're letting them just process their own emotions after the fact.
Yeah. Yes. And so, with the little one, wanting to say, I mean, I'll bet that was probably felt pretty bad for you. I bet you didn't like it. How did it feel? I like your suggestion when we were talking about this, that you can even give them suggestions about, like, I bet maybe you felt angry too, or that you felt scared, or maybe you felt sad. I can remember being, there when my parents were fighting, and I felt scared when that would happen. Sometimes I didn't know what was going to happen next. If everything was going to be okay. And did you feel that way? And make some space for that. I was just thinking about one of the big hooks as parents is that we hate to be seen in a bad way by our kids, and we can be lured into defending ourselves. But we really want to lean into validation. Like, it makes sense that you would feel scared. I know. I have felt that way too. Sometimes, arguments and disagreements are scary.
Yeah, it's like you have to put yourself in the back burner for a minute. And I think part of that maybe is that self-compassion where you're like, it's okay that we had a disagreement. And now I'm okay enough about it where I can be there for your feelings without trying to jump in and say, no, I wasn't really yelling. No, I didn't really escalate the situation. Because they're going to tell you.
I was justified,
Right. Being right is so important sometimes to us.
Exactly. But that's really the hook that can get us drawn into giving them more details, or, pulling them into the conflict in a way that we don't want to do. We don't need their understanding.
Right.
For our dilemmas that came up in that argument. We want to help them with their feelings.
I love these steps. So you have the conversation when you are calm enough to have it. You explain in age-appropriate ways the general way that the conflict was resolved, and you acknowledge that it existed in the first place, and then you give them space to process their feelings without jumping in and defending anybody, with just listening to their feelings. And then you're able to really help them understand how conflict happens, and also help them feel that they understand the world better, which is part of what we're trying to do as parents in helping our children thrive. Yeah. Yes. Well, Dr. Spiller, I am so glad that you came on and talked about this. This is going to be so helpful. It was helpful for me. I know it's going to be helpful for our listeners today. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you in your practice if they're running into a lot of conflicts and they need some individual help with this?
My practice is Heights Couples Therapy. We're in the Heights area of Houston, and it's heightscouplestherapy.com.
And the contact information will be in the show notes. We refer to Dr. Spiller and her colleagues all the time. They help so many of our families. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you to my audience. I will look forward to talking to you next time. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again for spending time with me on Educated Parent. If this episode helped you feel more confident in handling those parenting curveballs, hit follow so you never miss an episode. Know a parent who's stuck in the endless cycle of conflicting advice? Send this their way, because we all deserve parenting strategies we can actually trust. And hey, if you have a minute, leave a review. Your support helps other parents find real expert-backed solutions instead of just another opinion online. One last quick reminder, this podcast offers general advice, but every family is different. The advice offered in this podcast is not medical advice and is not appropriate for every family. If you need personalized parenting support, connect with an experienced clinician at Thriving Child Center or PCIT experts. That's it for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.